What is memory?
According to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, memory is the power or process of reproducing or recalling what has been learned and retained, especially through associative mechanisms. But what does this actually mean? Simply put, memory is our ability to store information and recall it at a later date, kind of like how a computer saves data. But not all information is created equal. There is an overwhelming amount of information that we take in every day. Each of our 5 senses takes in thousands of forms of stimuli. This includes everything from the random car horns and people talking on your way to class, to the feeling of your feet as they hit the ground. All this stuff the brain comes across is called sensory input, and for the most part it's pretty useless. Sensory input is briefly retained in what is called sensory memory. The American Psychological Association says that sensory memories all last under 3 seconds. If the brain picks up that something is important, the information is moved into short-term memory. Short-term memories consist of just a few items at a time. In 1956, George Miller, a professor from Princeton University, found in his research that most people retain somewhere from 5 to 9 items here, with the average being 7. The Genetic Science Learning Center from the University of Utah says this is just enough information to pick up on the last few words someone said, or to write down a phone number someone gives you. However, it's called short-term memory for a reason. Most information that makes it this far will be lost in under a minute. In order to be retained for any length of time, short-term memories must undergo what is called encoding. Encoding is the brain's method of processing and storing this information in long-term memory. There are several types of encoding, including semantic, auditory, and visual. Repeated exposure to something makes it easier for your brain to encode that information. That's why you are more likely to remember the words to a song after listening to it over and over again compared to somebody who has only heard it once. Your brain encodes information that it finds important and personal more readily than it does random things throughout the day. This is why emotionally impactful events, such as your first kiss or the birth of your child, can last a lifetime. But the tie your professor wore 3 weeks ago? Not so much. When long-term memories are formed, they go into storage in your brain, just like saving a file on your computer to your hard drive. The memory is stored out of sight, so your brain can focus on whatever it needs to without being cluttered up. The act of opening this memory file is called recall. Memories that you actively recall, such as what you studied for your last exam, are called explicit memories. Not everything in your long-term memory can be recalled. Once some actions, such as riding a bike or learning to eat, are learned, you can perform them without having to concentrate. These are called implicit memories. Long-term memories have the potential to last until death. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, not so fast. Just because these memories can last forever doesn't mean that they are trustworthy. When memories are recalled out of long-term storage, they don't come out as a solid chunk of information. Instead, they are pieced together, bit by bit, like a puzzle. In the textbook Psychology, published by Rice University, they call this process reconstruction. Due to the flexible nature of memories coming out of long-term storage, your brain can remember new events that didn't happen, and it can distort your already existing memories. Take Chuck, for example. Chuck was born in South Dakota. He lived there for a few years before moving to New York with his parents when he was 5. Every time Chuck sees Mount Rushmore in a movie, he is reminded of visiting it with his parents before they moved. Thing is, Chuck has never actually been to Mount Rushmore. He knows what it looks like from movies, school, and his friends' descriptions, but his memories of actually going there are a lie. Chuck isn't alone in this. Everybody suffers from what are called false memories. For the most part, false memories are not created on purpose, and most people don't even know they have them. There are a number of ways that false memories can be formed. Listening to what others have to say, such as your friends' descriptions of an event, or simply being exposed to incorrect information, can distort our memories. The biggest cause of distortion in our memories is bias. According to Merriam-Webster again, bias is an inclination of temperament or outlook, especially a personal and sometimes unreasoned judgment. So think of bias as a unique set of glasses that you see yourself and the world through. These glasses tint everything differently for different people, but you're not born with them. Biases form through life experience and what information we are surrounded with. Frequently hearing about violent crime in minority neighborhoods will alter people's perceptions towards certain groups of people. Psychology from Rice University calls this the stereotypical bias. For example, if Tom lives in a primarily white neighborhood, and all he hears about minorities is negative information, he will form a mental image of what these people are like before he ever meets them. Even if Tom is not a hateful person, he will have preconceived notions of how certain people will act and what they will look like because of what information he has been exposed to. It is possible for these biases to change by experiencing new things and meeting new people, but because we take in and filter all new information through our biases, what we encode isn't always the true version of events. But this distortion doesn't have to be negative. We almost always remember things about ourselves in a positive light. Psychology from Rice University calls this the egocentric bias. An example of this would be when you think back to how much you contributed in a group project compared to your lazy classmates. Surely without your input the whole thing would have fallen apart, right? Well, chances are your classmates feel the exact same way. Professor David A. Gershaw says in his article, "The egocentricity bias, this leads to an illusion of control, believing that we have control over events in our life, when objectively we do not." By filtering out information the brain doesn't think is important, our memories are distorted before they are even formed. When memories are reconstructed during recall, the chunks of information that get pieced together can be altered by our biases as well. Since we are always learning new things and going through new experiences, our biases change over time. This means when we recreate memories, we view them through a new set of lenses. New perspectives and biases filter out and distort even more information, so when the memory goes back into storage, it is changed. This means every time you think back on a happy moment in your life, it actually becomes altered further and further from the reality of what truly happened. Memories make us who we are. We base our friendships, interests, and life choices off of them. However, our memories are constantly changing, whether we are aware of it or not. As we learn more and change the way we view the world, we also change the way we view ourselves, our past, and everything that has happened to us, for better and for worse.